We'll discuss based on this works. 6.27. Actually, as we become purified, we too prominent. We use it for healing, protecting the inside of the wall. Today I'm recording here with the landmine is kept under my jacket, attached to a pen drive. And now I'm moving it to it, which is hitting, which causing any noise. Yeah. Using a landmine, just kept under my jacket. There is no noise. Got it? You put it over here. You're connected to here also. Actually, link. And connect here already. Zoom and link. Oh, you created projector here. Oh, we got it. Yeah. That's why you don't need a laptop for that. There's no internet. But my phone में still turn on the hotspot. Somehow this Vivo जो है is not connecting. Do you have data over here? मेरे phone में hotspot turn करो. So this verse says, Prashant Samhyena, that the mind becomes peaceful. And then Yoginam Sukham Uttam. The yogi experiences the supreme happiness. They're going to do this, and are they going to see this, or that will come on the screen? Hotspot party. Paiti Shantarajasam. That Paiti Shantarajasam. That the Rajoguna becomes pacified. And when the Rajoguna is pacified, Brahma Bhutam Akalmasham. We realize our spiritual identity as parts of Krishna. Maybe can you just position in such a way that is also visible? You can start the class. और पीछे ले लो स्पीकर एंड perfect visible, but if you write something and see whether it works, can we see it? So are they able to see on the Zoom? It's not clearly visible. Not visible. Then make sure that actually I'm asking for his phone also. Which I'm he's gone down. Asking for his phone. Did you turn on the hotspot on my So somehow on this phone, my tab is not connected. Connection failed repeatedly. Can you just give your data on it? One is it? V1, V2, 5G. Google now. Should I audio come from here or from there? Little good. I'm just running. Yes. Yesterday you were taking it from there. Okay, you have to make me a co-host so I can share the screen. Yes. So let's start with a quick summary. Thank you for coming today. Yesterday we were broadly discussing the topic of how spirituality empowers us, and we discussed the intelligence is empowered in three ways: to understand what is real, to understand what is the acronym? Rid of illusion. Yeah, get rid of illusion. What is real? What is important? And then what is doable for us? So, and so there's a three ways our spirituality helps us at the level of the intelligence. Now, today I'll talk about at the level of the soul, and then tomorrow I'll talk at the level of the mind. So, when we talk about the level of the soul, now the soul experiences satisfaction. Yoginam sukham uttamam. That was the verse which we discussed today. The yogi experiences supreme happiness. Let's recite this verse once. Prashanta manasam yaenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shant rajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. So here, the satisfaction that we experience when we practice spirituality, when we connect with Krishna, I'll talk about at three different levels. I'll talk about experiencing the presence of Krishna, experiencing the purpose of Krishna, and experiencing the power of Krishna in terms of how specifically how Krishna empowers us. So here, when we talk about God, we often emphasize that God is a person, and that is true. At the same time, God is not just a person like you and me. God is also a principle. When Krishna talks about, for example, that Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, I'm the source of everything. He's talking about the principle of divinity. So we could think of God only as a principle, and we could think of God only as a person. If you think of God only as a principle, we tend to go towards becoming impersonal. So, like the law of gravity is a principle, and we could say gravity, as far as we know in the universe, gravity exists everywhere, and gravity acts everywhere. So, like that, God exists everywhere, and God acts everywhere. So, if we consider God only to be a principle, then we may become impersonal. Now, if we consider God only to be a person, then what may happen is that if we hear the stories of Krishna, and in the stories, Krishna is one character among many characters. Of course, he is a very important character. Often he is the star character, but still he is one character. So we may trivialize, we may treat Krishna like a mundane person. So we don't want to become trivial in our approach to Krishna. So we don't want to become impersonal. So there is a deviation called Sahajiyaism, where people become often sentimental with Krishna. So what we want to understand is that God is both a principle and a person. And by understanding that God is a principle, we get to see his Ashwarya, we understand his greatness. And when we understand him as a person, we can appreciate his sweetness, his madhurya. So his Aishwarya and Madhurya, both are important to understand. Now, of course, when we talk about his pastimes, the Leela focuses much more on the Madhurya. So, yes, Krishna lifts the Govardhan hill, but that Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill is not the primary focus of the way the Acharyas tell the Leela. Yeah, Krishna lifted, but what was the point? That is a reciprocation of love between him and his devotees. That was the primary purpose. So, in that sense, Krishna's greatness is used in the service of his sweetness. So, let's look at from this perspective. So, when we Atma Tushti, how does it happen? It happens by understanding the divine God's presence, purpose, and power. And this leads to increasing levels of satisfaction. Let's start with the first one, God's presence. Now, at this point, it's important to recognize that everybody during the course of their life recognizes that there is something bigger than me, that there is some higher reality. Now, they may or may not acknowledge it to be God, but when they perceive that higher reality, that presence brings a sense of wonder. Two things happen: it brings a sense of wonder and it brings a sense of serenity. Serenity is a deep peace. So the Gita talks about experiencing God's presence, especially in the third chapter, 10th chapter, called Vibhuti Yoga. So whenever anybody sees something extraordinary, something wonderful, they are awestruck by it. So now, probably the greatest scientist in modern times is considered to be Einstein. Now, Einstein has been a subject of intellectual warfare between theists and atheists. That theists will quote the statements of his which talk about how he believes in God, and atheists will quote statements about his where he says, I do not believe in God. And he has made both statements. So for him, the way he grew up, the Judeo Christian conception of God, he felt it unappealing, unpersuasive. He felt that God, that conception of God was too small and petty. And he didn't accept that. At the same time, he did accept that when he studied the universe, he said the sense of wonder when you, I'm paraphrasing it, the sense of wonder when we observe the universe, the sense of the wondrous order that is there in the universe, that is to me a sign of a divine intelligence, of some higher intelligence. He says that that sense of wonder is the womb of all science. So there is so basically for him the sense of wonder, and somebody study goes deep into science, you know, when we appreciate how marvelously the order is there in the world, there is something bigger than me, there is something astounding, and that points to divinity. Now whether the person makes that link and that link, okay, this wonderful thing points to a higher reality, and the leap from there, oh, there is some organizing principle, there is some divinity. People may or may not make that leap, but say if we to uh, go to the Himalayas, and there we see the Ganga, the majesty of the Himalayas, the beauty of the flowing Ganga. Seeing that itself reminds us there are realities bigger than me, and those realities exist independent of me. Those realities sustain me. So that way, coming in the presence of something that inspires awe, that inspires wonder, that itself brings peace. So now, in many ways, that
this presence of God, this sense of wonder, this sense of serenity. What happens in our day-to-day life? Oh, this is wrong, and that is wrong, and that is wrong, and that is wrong. But when we perceive, okay, there is a higher reality, there is a higher order. And it's a moment of discovery, wonder, and serenity. Now, the serenity is basically a profound peace. So a deep level of peace. So when we start experiencing God's presence, now those who are more theistically minded, so God's presence can be experienced broadly. This is an emotion that can come through nature, and it can come through culture. So nature means if we move away from our world, our human world, and come close to nature, our thoughts do move towards a higher reality. And culture specifically refers to if we arrange human society in a way that there are channels by which people can experience. So then God's presence can be experienced there also. Many people who go to a temple or a or a mosque or a church, or what is the Buddhist place called?
Bihar.
Bihar. And the Buddhist holy place. Stupa. Okay, stupa is a statue of. I think they use the word temple only. Whatever. Monastery is where they stay. Okay. So anyway, any place of worship people go to, a place of veneration worship. Many people say that I experience some peace over. Now, even atheists have talked about this experience. The vibes here are different. They may not attribute it to God. They may attribute it to people feeling the people living a more calm life over there. They may attribute it to the fact that that there is a particular way in which the paintings are there, the particular way the lighting is there. So they attribute that peace to everything except God. So, but still, through culture also, God's presence can be experienced. And that first level of presence comes as peace. So peace means there is a higher, there is something bigger. And in that bigger vision, things are in order. So I'll talk about peace more in tomorrow's session when we talk about how the mind becomes peaceful at various degrees. Hmm. But this experience of peace can come in many ways. So when people practice meditation, they may experience some peace. Whatever way they do it. So here, Krishna is perceived. He can be perceived as a person, but he can be perceived also as a principle. So when people meditate, then they feel calmer. They feel more peaceful. So this is at the first level, that itself is a satisfaction. Oh, I perceive some higher reality. That the God's presence that is experienced brings us peace. Now, beyond that, in bhakti, so this presence is almost, there are many ways to experience God's presence. So, when somebody is doing art, so now, while doing art, the artist is a little bit introspective. Many artists have said that actually the art does not come from me, it comes through me. It's almost as if I am becoming an instrument for something higher. Now, even in professional circles, they do not attribute to God, but they say talk about being in the zone, being in a peak performance phase, where everything seems to fall in place. The ideas come, the facilities come, things just work out. And it's almost as if when we use the word inspiration, hmm, inspiration comes to us and then it comes through us. Many of the discoveries and breakthroughs that have happened in science and many other fields, they have happened through some higher reality, something higher. It's almost as if the idea is placed inside us and then we bring it out. So, so culture can refer to social culture in terms of social arrangements like temples, but it can also refer to individual practice. Hmm. So, by individual practice, this doesn't have to be necessarily bhakti practice, but anyway, one becomes more receptive to some higher reality. So, Now we also can experience God's presence through our bhakti practices. At the same time, the bhakti practices such as kirtan and japa and puja and all those things, they take us much further. What is the next thing I mentioned? Three things that I was discussing: presence, purpose. So God is a person. So the idea is that the universe, it is not just that there is a higher reality somewhere up there, but that higher reality is active. That higher reality is dynamic. That higher reality cares for us. That higher reality has a purpose for the world and has a purpose for me. That understanding is extraordinary. So if you see the purpose of, okay, I use the word purpose again. The purpose of the Bhagavad Gita was to tell Arjuna about Krishna's purpose. Hmm? Arjuna, it was not that Arjuna did not believe in God. He obviously believed in God. And if you see at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, what happens? We see the last verses, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruvani Tir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna, the bow wielder, there'll be victory, there'll be morality, there'll be power, there'll be glory. So now, if you consider this verse as a conclusion, it is a very inspiring conclusion. But as a logical statement, we can question it that why does Arjuna need to be mentioned at all over there? Isn't it? Wherever there is Krishna, there will be prosperity. Yes? Krishna is Lakshmipati, Vishnu is Lakshmipati. So wherever there is Vishnu, there will be Lakshmi. So the purpose of the Gita is not just to proclaim God's position. The purpose of the Gita is to transform man's disposition. That that not just God is great, that is fair enough. But if we consider the Gita's purpose, it is not just establish how God is great. Proclaim what? God's position. That Krishna is God. Wherever there is that He will be, there will be victory. That is fair enough. That is one purpose of the Gita. But the far more bigger purpose is to transform man's disposition. So the point is, at the end of the Gita, when Arjuna is included in that, the point is by hearing the Gita, Arjuna's disposition has become transformed. At the start of the Gita, Arjuna was not ready to fight the war. Visrujya sharam chapam, shokasam vigna manasaha. It put aside his bow, saying, I will not fight. But then by the end of the Gita, yatra partho dhanurdharaha. He has picked up his bow. So the idea is that God has a purpose and I am a part of that purpose. So this is thrilling. So when we hear Krishna Leela, so that also gives great joy. When we remember Krishna, we also get remember Krishna in various different ways. We get great joy. So I am not talking about that joy, right? That is an important part of the joy that we experience just once we have developed some bhakti. Hearing about Krishna Leela itself is very enriching. But sometimes that can seem. I just did a retreat for some Western people who had come to India for a tour. So the last session I did was a topic. So one person asked me this question, and then I took a whole session on that topic. That this whole spirit, this whole retreat, it is wonderful, but it feels like a delightful form of escapism. A delightful form of escapism. That there is my real life, and I have my responsibilities and my challenges, and there's the real world with there's political messiness, there are cultural problems, there are environmental problems, and I have turned away from it all, and I am happy in my own world. So am I? It's nice, it's delightful, but isn't it escapism? Isn't it turning away from the world? And yes, it is. So the way I explained at that time was that so that ultimately the world is too much to bear for anyone. The world is filled with so much negativity, so much complexity that everybody gets fed up with the world. And that's why when people watch TV, what are they doing? That's escapism. When people constantly surf on the net, oh, what happened here, what happened there, they're escaping from their real life. When people take drugs, they're escaping from their real life, isn't it? So the world is too much to bear for anyone. And everybody needs to turn away from the world and tune off the world. But when we practice bhakti, in the tuning off, we are not just running away from the world. We are running towards a reality that is overseeing the world. And then when we come back, we are rejuvenated with a higher consciousness. Somebody may say that, okay, I watched a movie, I felt good, I'm rejuvenated. Yeah, that rejuvenation might be there, but it's only emotional rejuvenation. I was feeling frustrated, now I'm feeling better. And I come back. But there is no worldview supporting that. There is no philosophical understanding of how things work. So spirituality has these two aspects to it. One is spirituality is transcendental, and the other is spirituality is transformational. Spirituality, in terms specifically in terms of the world, spirituality can be world transcending, and spirituality can be world transforming. Mm. So, to put it visually, let's say if I am here in the world and Krishna is above us, then we turn away from the world to Krishna. That is the transcendental aspect of spirituality, the world transcending aspect of spirituality. And then there is we act in the world in service of Krishna, and that is the world transforming aspect of spirituality. So, if we consider the Gita and the Bhagavatam, both are talking about bhakti, but their focus of bhakti is very different. The Gita's bhakti is much more world transforming. The Bhagavatam's bhakti is much more world transcending. That is, Arjuna is told by Krishna, you have to fight a war, and this war is a part of my plan. So you be a part of my plan and you fight the war. So it is the focus is on world transformation. Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuga yuga. Krishna says that I have come here to establish dharma and nimitta matram bhava savyasachi. You become an instrument in my establishment of dharma. On the other hand, Parikshit Maharaj has been cursed to die in 7 days, and he gracefully accepts the curse. And then his focus is on, okay, the world is temporary, turn away from the world, remember Krishna, become absorbed in the hearing about Krishna, and transcend the world thereby. So spirituality has both these aspects, world transforming and world transcending. Now, in general, when we are practicing bhakti, there is our sadhana, which is generally more world transcending. We turn away from the world to remember Krishna, to chant, to hear, to worship. And then our seva is world transforming. So our seva could be directly we are distributing books, we are sharing Krishna's mission, or it could be we are raising a family. It could be that through our job, we are creating the financial stability for ourselves so that we can serve Krishna, or we are creating a respectability and reputation by which when we share Krishna's message, we'll reach other people, or through the subject of our work itself, we may be able to bring Krishna to others. It depends. But the idea is world transforming and world transcending. So now, what I'm talking about is in general, when we are transcending, the focus is more on remembrance. So that is inner happiness that is there. And the Bhakti saints often talk a lot about this happiness. Sukhataram aparam najatu jane haricharana smaranamritena tulyam. Mukundmala Stotra, written by Kulashekar Maharaj, contains many prayers about how the joy of remembering the Lord is so great that it it makes all the pleasures of the world seem pale and stale in comparison. And that is the joy he's relishing. Kulshekar was a king, and then he renounced the world to completely focus on the Lord. He's known as one of the great alvars, the saints in South India in the Sri Vaishnava tradition. So the point is, yes, there is the joy and remembrance. Now, that joy and remembrance can be of the presence of the Lord. Oh, the Lord exists. The joy and remembrance can also be about the purpose of the Lord. How wonderfully Krishna acts. So when we hear the Leelas of Krishna, oh, the devotee does this, and the Lord does this, and the demons do this, and how Krishna foils their plans, and how Krishna works things out. So Krishna's purpose, ultimately, whether it is in transcendental or transformational, is love. Krishna's purpose is love. He is reciprocating love with his devotees in the spiritual world, and he displays that when he comes to this world, and he invites us into his world. So when we understand Krishna's purpose and see how Krishna's purpose is being manifested, how Krishna is reciprocating love with his devotees, that brings great joy to us. So uh, the peace comes by recognizing there's a higher reality. The purpose comes that that higher reality is not just a passive presence. That higher reality is a living, loving person. And that person has a purpose. That purpose is that Krishna loves everyone. Now, when we talk about Krishna's love for everyone, this is one key concept that sometimes when we practice bhakti, that recently one devotee was telling me that, where was I? I was in the Middle East in Dubai. So one devotee came and said that I was told that when I started practicing bhakti, uh, I, chanting will free me from anxiety. But he said now chanting is the biggest anxiety of my day. Isn't it? So I said, okay, how will I find time to complete my rounds? How will I be able to? Am I doing the rounds attentively or not? Am I committing offenses? So he said, instead of removing anxiety, it seems to have added anxiety in my life. So what is the? So is this like deceptive marketing that you promise one thing and then you don't give that? So I told him that yes, it's a valid concern, and there are 2 points to understand. Many points, but two main points. That there 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 are, if we consider medicine, there is pain, the pain of the disease and the pain of the treatment. While both are pains, but they are categorically very different. What do you mean pain of the treatment? If I have got some, say I got some rash over here, I'm scratching. Now, if I apply some ointment and say it burns over there. Now the ointment is treating, but it's burning over there. Now, when it burns, what happens? There's pain. Now, in terms of the pain of the disease and the pain of the treatment, in terms of experience, it's just pain. Hmm? But in terms of intelligence, it is utterly different, isn't it? So, similarly, anxiety. Hmm? Anxiety is inevitably going to be there in the material world. But there is anxiety that is a part of the pain. So when we have many, many desires, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to eat that, I want to watch that, I want to buy that, I want to enjoy that, that anxiety is actually going to increase our entanglement in the world. That anxiety is a part of the disease. And the anxiety of remembering Krishna is a part of the treatment. So I'll talk more about this tomorrow, when how through spirituality we become peaceful. But the key difference over here is, what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about Krishna's love, that's the point I wanted to make mainly, that sometimes bhakti can increase our insecurity. Insecure, how? That life itself makes us very insecure. Oh, if I'm a student, maybe I'm not good enough student. Maybe the student is better than me. That professor likes the student more. My parents, I have a sibling, and my parents like my sibling more than me. Or I'm not tall enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not fair enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. So much insecurity is created. And then what happens when you come to practice bhakti? We start feeling, oh, I'm not a good enough devotee. I don't wake up in the morning. I attend time. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do this. Have any of you heard this phrase? I am. Any of you heard this? Oh, I was going to talk about this. I haven't heard anything except this. So now a big problem comes up. That sometimes, or I'm a fallen devotee, or let's make it, I'm a common phrases, I'm a fallen soul. Have you heard that phrase? I'm a fallen soul. So now sometimes what happens? This fallen becomes so big that we forget the soul. Not I am a fallen soul, I am fallen. And this is a dangerous illusion. Why? Because our fallen state is also a temporary designation. Just like to think I am male, I am female, I am a South Indian, I'm a North Indian, I am fair, I'm dark, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm introvert, I'm extrovert. All these are not attributes of the soul. They're attributes of our body, mind, machine. And they're external to us. We need to acknowledge them, but we don't have to over identify with them. So, just as we should not over identify with any conditioning, we should not over identify with the fact that we are conditioned also. So, that I am fallen should never become so big that I forget that I am the soul. I am a soul and I am a part of the whole. So, Krishna loves us always. And our bhakti practice is not meant to earn Krishna's love. That they would say, okay, if I don't wake up in the morning, Krishna will be angry with me. If I don't do this, Krishna will be angry with me. It is that, oh, Krishna will stop caring for me. Our bhakti practice is not to earn Krishna's love, it is to realize Krishna's love. It is to realize that Krishna already loves us. That this is a key principle. So, Krishna, we have the sun behind us. So, is Krishna is like the sun, and Krishna's love is the light of the sun. So we don't have to do anything to get the sun to give light to us. The sun will always give light. But if my eyes are closed, if I am in an underground dungeon, I won't see the light. So I am not, if I strive to open my eyes, I am not causing the sun to give me light. I am simply beginning to perceive that the light is there, the sun is giving the light. So bhakti practice is not meant to earn Krishna's love. When we start thinking this can lead us to a lot of insecurity. One of the worst things that parents can do to their children is to make them think that you have to earn my love. If you don't get good enough marks, you don't do this, you don't do this, I won't care. So Krishna, we never have to earn Krishna's love. What we have to do is realize Krishna's love. And so our bhakti practice is meant to help us realize Krishna's love. So that Krishna loves me even now. Now that brings us to a question that what do we mean by realizing Krishna's love? It's like if there is a newborn baby. When the baby is born, it's a great paradox that when the baby starts crying, everybody becomes happy. Hmm? And if the baby who is born does not cry, everybody becomes unhappy. Concerned, worried, what happened over here? So the crying of the baby, it's not that the children, our parents and the relatives are happy that the baby is crying. But the baby is born, the baby is alive. So the crying can be a sign of pain, but the crying can also be a sign of life. That it's alive, conscious, and therefore some pain, some discomfort is experienced. And then the mother will comfort the baby and take other care of other things. So when the newborn baby, the mother comforts the baby, and then the mother offers her breast milk. At that time, the baby is so small and so caught in its own the trauma of being expelled from the birth canal that it doesn't even understand that this is actually a person. This is my mother. It doesn't even understand that she is giving me milk. There's something soft, and if I press it, something soft comes out of it. And oh, it's so nice. But as the baby starts growing, then the baby starts perceiving that actually this sweet, this delicious thing that is coming, it is coming from someone. And that someone is a person. And that person loves me. So it's a gradual increase in awareness. So for most of us, we are still like that baby. When something good happens in our life, we say, oh, it's such a nice thing happened to me. We look at the provisions in life, but we rarely look at the provider of those provisions. So these provisions could range from the talents that we have. The provisions could be some circumstances that work for us. There's so many things that are there. But gradually, we need to open our eyes like that baby to perceive God's love. So the baby would not survive if the mother were not there to take care of the baby. Like that, we wouldn't survive if God is not there. Now, we don't regulate our breath. Right now, I'm speaking. I don't know how my voice box produces the speech. So everything that we do, we start realizing Krishna's love. What happens in our life journey? We often look for some gifts in life. If something good happens in our life, we start thinking that it is a sign that Krishna loves me, that God is there, God cares for me. And if something good does not happen, we think, where is God? Where does He care for me? And that's fair enough. We look for gifts in life. But what is even more important is to understand the gift of life. That the very fact that I'm alive indicates that there is a higher reality. So, say the baby is sleeping at night, and uh, suddenly the temperature drops and the baby starts trembling. The mother sees that, and the mother puts a nice warm comforter on the baby. When that comforter is put, the baby might still be asleep. The eyes are still closed, but somehow at the back of the mind, the baby is aware. Oh, my mother is here, and my mother put this comforter on me. So, making that link from the feeling of warmth to the mother's love, that is a gradual process of awareness and awakening. So, for all of us, when we experience that sense of comfort, we may be very agitated, and we come to a temple, we chant the holy names, we hear some katha, and we start feeling peaceful. That sense of relief. The world can be a very cold place. And when we come in the presence of Krishna, we experience warmth. So that link, that the baby, that makes the link from the warmth of the comforter to the love of the mother. So like that, we also need to make that link from whatever gives us relief, whatever gives us joy, to the love of Krishna. So for us, that when we experience relief, when we experience shelter, relief in remembrance, relief, whatever we experience, that is God's love for us. So this is where it is not just God is present, but God is has a purpose. So we experience relief in remembrance, or remembrance brings relief, or various things bring relief for us, whatever it is. Through that, we see that it is God's love. So God's purpose is to love us, to care for us, to elevate us. Now, is God's love conditional or unconditional? What do you think? Is Krishna's love conditional or unconditional? Unconditional. Then why does Krishna say you have to chant so many rounds, and why do you do this and do that and do that? There's so many. If there are so many rules, then how is it unconditional? Hmm? Some provisions are conditional. Some provisions are conditional. Some things are unconditional, some are conditional. Okay. Love. Okay, that's a good way of looking at it. Is love meant to be unconditional, or is love meant to be conditional? Now, see, if you consider broadly speaking, Krishna's love, like a parent's love. Now, should a parent's love for a child be unconditional or conditional? Now, that's why traditionally families have had two parents. One parent offers unconditional love, one parent offers conditional. Well, because, see, parenting is also about helping the child to grow. And the child has to grow. So, unconditional love is about accepting. Hmm? Unconditional love is about accepting. Whatever you do, I love you. Conditional love is about expecting. Now, if there is only accepting, the child will never grow. The child will stagnate. Whatever you do, I accept you. You don't study, I accept you. You take drugs, I accept you. You drive a car without license and kill someone, still I accept you. Well, the society will not accept you as a parent. so, so you cannot just not only stagnate, you'll degrade. So, parenting cannot just be only about accepting. Now, if it's only about expecting, then the child will suffocate. Like many teenagers, they feel that the only time my parents talk with me is to find faults with me. Why do you dress like this? Why do you watch this new program? Why do you hear this music? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And if constantly there is expecting, then that feels very suffocating. So, but the expecting is necessary for a person to grow. So Krishna accepts us unconditionally. Krishna says, Surudam Sarva Bhutana. He doesn't say, Surudam Mad Shuddha Bhaktana. He says, I am the well-wisher of everyone. So Krishna's purpose is that out of his love, he wants the best for everyone. So that is the accepting part. So Krishna's love is universal. But then why are there conditions in that love? Because that is how we will grow. That is how we will be able to develop and express our love for Krishna. We'll be able to develop and express our love for Krishna. So the rules, see, it is a irony, it is a misconception to think that love means there should be no rules. See, even if there's a romantic relationship, the kind that's talked about in movies, the male and a female are attracted to each other. If they love each other, then the basic rule is that they should not be seeing other people. If a man says, I love you, but I also want to see other women, that means I no longer love you. Get out of my life. That's what the woman will say. So the idea is that there is love naturally has some rules, but those rules should be for building the relationship. So when Krishna expects from us, it is not that he's putting conditions on his love. Rather, he wants us in turn to love him and to relish his love more and more. So love, Krishna's love is both. It is unconditional and it is conditional. It is unconditional in terms of the fact that whatever we do, no matter how sinful we are, apichetasi papebhya sarvebhya pakuttama sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrajinam santarishyasi. Krishna says in 4.37 that whatever a person does, no matter how sinful they may be, they will be elevated. In 4.36 and 37, he talks about two verses where how the potency of the wisdom about his love is. So, one way to understand this is that see, the conditions or the expectations that are there in bhakti, they are meant for us to not to get Krishna to love us, but the conditions that are there, they are meant to help us express our love for Krishna and to also better experience his love. Experience Krishna's love. Like I already talked about the point of experiencing Krishna's love. That is that if my eyes are closed, I cannot see the sun. Now, what does express our love mean? That means that love is not just an emotion in the heart. Love has to express through actions. So now Krishna's love is unconditional in the sense that it is unswerving, it is unflinching. Madruk prapanna pashupasha vimokshanaya muktaya bhuri karunaya namo layaya. Alayaya. Krishna is unswerving, Krishna is untiring in his love for us, in his wanting to elevate us. So he's Surudam Sarvabhutanam. So it's like one way to understand this is if this is Krishna in the center, then around Krishna there are many circles of love. So the gopis of Vrindavan say the gopis are in the innermost circle. The remaining Vrajavasis are in another circle. The Vaikuntavasis are in another circle. Like that, there are many circles of love, and everybody is in some circle. So even the most sinful person, the, the worst sinner, is still a part of Krishna and is still never abandoned by Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj says, Krupana Vatsala. You're a not just a Dina Vatsala, but you're also Krupana Vatsala. Even a person is materialistic and short-sighted and sinful, Krishna loves them also. But the point is, we all are meant to enter into an inner circle of love. So that way, when we experience Krishna's purpose, we start experiencing a sublime joy that Krishna loves everyone, Krishna loves me, and Krishna wants me to love you. And that brings us to the last part, which I'll elaborate on tomorrow. That is the power that when we practice bhakti, it is we who start experiencing power beyond our own power, and that power brings about change, both inner change and outer change. So earlier I talked a bit about inspiration, that suddenly some insights come up, some ideas come up. So that power, say Krishna told Arjuna, you be my instrument. Krishna empowered Arjuna to. So when we align with Krishna's purpose, then Krishna starts acting through us. And when he acts through us, such wonderful things happen through us that we normally wouldn't even think about them. We wouldn't think that they are possible for us. So when we start practicing bhakti, we will find that our capacity will increase. Our capacity to understand, to present, to execute, that we will become empowered. So inner empowerment is in terms of our capacity to fight the anarthas. Outer empowerment is in terms of our capacity to do things. That each one of us will be empowered by Krishna. And that power, Arjuna, he had that power. He was naturally very good in archery. Krishna empowered him. And he was able to overcome incredible odds. So Krishna gives that power. And that is when we start recognizing that I am not just a part of some higher reality, but I am becoming an instrument. I'm being used for that higher reality. If there's a pandemic and we ourselves are sick, we are worried. Okay, will anyone care for me? So, but if it is this is a hospital and there is a treatment plan over, we feel happy that the presence that there is a hospital, there is a treatment system over here. That presence will help us feel peaceful. Then, once we not only come to the hospital, we come to a doctor, and the doctor not only treats us. Doctor says, "Okay, I don't just want to treat you and heal you. I want you to be a part of my healthcare staff, and you help treat others also." That there is a higher purpose to the world, and there is our purpose, which is a part of the higher purpose. And then, when say somebody is about to die, and we give them a medicine, and that person suddenly, it's almost like magically becomes healthy. Wow, what happened? There is some power over here. So many times when we start sharing spiritual wisdom, see, we keep hearing classes regularly, so we feel, yeah, I know all these points, they're familiar. Sometimes when we share some point, and then somebody who hears that point is dramatically inspired by it. There is that illumination that comes in the eyes of people. For example, when the jigsaw puzzle pieces of life just fall in place, there's that aha moment. And when people get that aha moment, we get our aha moment. What I am doing is of some great value. That I am not only a part of something higher, but I am able to do something far greater than what I would normally able to do. So these three things: peace, purpose, and power. So I talked about how the Atma gets tushti, gets satisfaction. I talked about this today. Three main things. What are the three things? Presence, purpose, power. Excellent. So I focus much more on the first and the second part. So in presence, I talk about when we understand God, we can think of him as a principle, or we can think of him as a person. The reality is that he is both. We treat him only as a principle, and will become impersonal. If we treat him only as a person, we'll treat him as a mundane person. We will treat him trivially. So when both is there, then that is what is transformation. So did I talk about how that there are many different ways that when people experience the presence of God, that leads to a sense of wonder and a sense of serenity. So people may experience it in many different ways. Wherever they experience some vibhuti of God, that vibhuti can come through nature. When we go into the presence of the manifestation of nature, it can come through culture. Culture can refer to both the social arrangement as well as the individual practice. So even atheists, they experience something sublime when they come to a temple. That is, they may not attribute it to God, but they experience something. We can attune ourselves more to it. And then the purpose of God. So here, the purpose ultimately is love. So the presence can be experienced by anyone. The purpose starts being experienced much more by those who are devotees. So there we talk elaborately about love, how Krishna's love for us is like a baby awakening. We are like that baby, and as the baby starts making that link between the milk and the mother, that link has to be made. So like that, we make the link between the provision, what we are getting, and the provider. So what is the provision? There are many gifts. There are gifts in life, but much more valuable is the gift of life. So from that provision, we need to make the link to the provider. And then we discuss this theme of, is God's love conditional or unconditional? It's both. So that parent love, unconditional love is about accepting, and conditional love is about expecting. So Krishna expects something from us, but it is not so that we can, because he wants to suffocate us, but he wants us to experience his love. So what happens is that Krishna's love for us is always there, but it's like the sun. So when we practice bhakti, it is to experience his love and then to express our love. So the rules of bhakti are not meant to make Krishna's love conditional. Experience his love is like we open our eyes and then express our love. That is how, when we practice sadhana bhakti, we start expressing our love towards Krishna. And that's how we talked about how there is Krishna at the center and there are many circles of love. What we want to do is want to move towards the inner circle of love. And lastly, I talked about the power that we become we become an instrument for Krishna. And when we become an instrument, then we are empowered by Krishna. That power can be both inner and outer. Inner can give us a great sense of peace and transformation. Power basically brings about change. So I talked about this, conclude this metaphor in medical terms. Medical is that when I understand the presence, there's a hospital. Purpose is that I am I'm I'm a part of the healthcare team. I'm in a healthcare team. So I can actually have a higher purpose. And that power is I can heal others, or what I do can heal others. So then what happens? Then our life gets a sublime joy that comes that what I can do can be so valuable, so transformational. In this way, our Atma gets tushti through the practice of Bhakti. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Sir, is it necessary for the higher reality to be a person?
Is it necessary for the higher reality to be a person?
We already at some point that yes, this reality we are experiencing is not ultimate. We get a sense of it, but we are thinking that there is a higher reality, and
Well, the three ways of looking at it. See, first is that what is that higher reality? Is it just existing over there, or is it the source of all of reality? See, God is not just the supreme person, or not just the supreme reality. The definition of God, go to many traditions, it is that it is the source of everything. Sarva karana karanam. So if that ultimate reality is the source of everything in this world, and in the world, we have principles and we have persons. So if in the world principles and persons both are there, then in the source of the world also both should be. That's a logical inference. If that reality is existing as the source of everything. The second point is that if we say that it is not a person, now personhood, as contrasted with personality. Personality is somebody's an outgoing person, somebody's an introvert person. That's their personality. But personhood is the status of being a person. The personhood is one of the most attractive features of life. Nobody falls in love with a stone. Nobody falls in love with a pillar. Why? Because it's not a person. It doesn't reciprocate. So personhood, so our longing for love is one of the deepest and most defining longings for us. So in this, and love is primarily directed towards persons. We can love concepts and ideas also, but love is most fulfilling when it's reciprocated, and reciprocation requires a person. So if and love brings great joy when it is fulfilled. So if the ultimate reality lacks personality, if the ultimate reality lacks the capacity to love, the ultimate reality lacks form, then that ultimate reality itself becomes deficient. So if somebody says, oh, God is not a person, God is just a light. If we are saying talking about God, or we are using the word ultimate reality, and we are using just, it means what are we doing? We are limiting. Now, so we are putting a limitation on the divine. Now, the third point is that doesn't form put a limitation, doesn't personhood put a limitation? That's the common understanding. But the problem is the limitation doesn't come from personhood, it or form. It comes from materiality. I consider this house. It has a form. Is it limited? It is limited. Now, suppose Shamurai decides to build a big new house, and they demolishes this house. Now, when he demolishes it, and now the debris of what has been demolished, will it be limited or unlimited? Limited, isn't it? So, matter, whether it has form or whether it is without form, it's always limited. Limitation cannot be removed simply by removing form. So, it's a misconception to think that form limits, therefore removing form will make things unlimited. The limitation comes from the materiality of things. And God is not material, God is spiritual. So that's why when Krishna was on the lap of Mother Yashoda, where she was asking him to open his mouth, and when he opened his mouth, he saw the whole universe inside. So God was in one place in the world, but the whole world was in place inside him, in the place inside him. Okay.
बाउंड्रीज नहीं हो जाएंगी फिर बाउंड्रीज क्रिएट होगी ना जैसे हमें और उस वर्ल्ड में एक अंतर हो गया एंड देयर इज अ बाउंड्री.
Yeah, the boundary is the basis of
limitation.
No, boundary is the base. Boundary can be a limitation, but the boundary can be the basis of love. If there is no boundary, then there can be no love. So the idea is that, oh, there is one ultimate reality and I merge into that reality. Then if we merge into that reality, we won't even exist to experience that I have merged. So it is almost like the eradication of existence. So there is no capacity for love, no capacity for experiencing anything. So love needs to. Love cannot exist in just oneness. Oneness can give peace, but in oneness, no love is possible. There has to be a subject of love and an object of love. Okay. Think about it. There's something more in mind? Any other online questions?
We have here in so many class that we have to think we are fallen soul.
So we hear in classes that we have to think we are fallen souls. Yes, definitely. It's just a matter of emphasis that thinking we are fallen souls can bring humility or it can bring insecurity. So what is happening to us, we have to see that we all can have a huge ego and think I'm such a great person. And sometimes we think of ego and humility as opposites, but it's not that simple that I can say ego is here and opposite of it is humility. But actually the reality is threefold. There is ego is on one side of the pendulum, insecurity is on the other side of the pendulum, and in between is humility. So ego means I know everything, I can do everything, I am God. That is basically I know everything, I am everything. Insecurity is I am nothing, I am zero, I am nothing, I am just. Now, in between is humility is I am something. Mamaiv amsho jivaloke. We are amsha. So we are something. We are a part of Krishna. So now to think I am everything, that is Mayavad. To think I am nothing, that is Shunyavad. So both of those have to be avoided. So yes, that the talking of in class about I'm a fallen soul, that's an important point because that is meant to get us from ego, the pendulum from ego, we want to get to humility. But quite often, the pendulum can overrun to the other side. So I'm not saying that we should not think we are fallen souls. My point was we shouldn't go to the other extreme of the pendulum and start living in constant guilt and start constant negativity. That Krishna values us, Krishna values us, and that's why we need to value ourselves. Okay. Yes.
Would you like to mention that there are different circles in which people are experiencing love of Krishna, even the most fallen person is experiencing the love. So, this is just like a person, a baby is getting mother's milk in a different form, like from a bottle. If you're getting it, so it is nourished in that way also. So it is important for that to realize the mother's love because it is getting nourishment and everything. Just like people outside, so they're content with whatever they're doing. So how we can motivate them to actually come to the inner self?
Okay. So when I talk about sorry. So when I talk about multiple circles of love, are they about everybody's experiencing Krishna's love? And well, my point of that example was not so much that everybody is experiencing Krishna's love, that everybody is loved by Krishna. Whether they are experiencing it or not is up to them. Some people may not be experiencing God's love at all, and that's why they may not be loving God. Something terrible has happened in somebody's life, somebody has lost a loved one, somebody has had a crippling accident. Well, where is God? So not everybody experiences God's love all the time. And even those who are trying to be devoted to God, they may also go through phases in their life when they don't experience God's love. They may experience a sense of coldness. They may feel a sense of dryness in their spiritual life. In the Christian tradition, that is called as the dark night of the soul. That the soul just feels completely bereft, completely abandoned. So in our tradition, that is the idea of when we are going through the anatha phase. At that time, there is this ghanatarla. Sometimes we are intense in our bhakti, sometimes we just feel bhakti is completely dry. So now these things happen with everyone. And when this is happening, there are two main things that as devotees, we are meant to become manifestations of God's love for. So if a devotee is in distress, if a devotee is feeling difficulty in life, then other devotees should be kind and supporting and comforting, and that's how that devotee will feel Krishna's love. And similarly, with respect to new people, it is mostly through the personal warmth of the devotionally minded, of the theistic people, of the saintly people, that people start becoming drawn towards God. Now, because this world is a domain of Maya, Maya means illusion. So in the world, there will never be unambiguous, it means clear, non-confusing. There'll never be unambiguous evidence for the existence of God. What does that mean? That means in the world, there'll be some things which will point towards the existence of God, and some things will point toward the non-existence of God. So, for example, we may talk about how we are all provided water by such a marvelous process of nature. And the clouds are like a mobile airborne water tank, which is made of aircraft proof technology. It's an amazing wonder, and that's how we have been provided water. So, for a theistically minded person, the very existence of clouds is a pointer to the existence of God. God's love is coming to me through the water that is providing, nourishing me, sustaining my life itself. But then an atheist will ask, okay, if clouds are created by God to provide water for life forms, then why does it rain on the oceans? Why does it rain on the oceans? So that atheists can ask this question and stay atheist. that God has made this world in such a way that faith in Him has to be a choice. Faith in Him is not a matter of force. So God is not like a normal, say, not like a police person or a dictator. If you don't believe me, I'll destroy you. It's not like that. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the various traditions of the world, there is a conception of hell. But there is a very categorical difference in the conception of hell in the Bhagavad Gita and in the say the Judeo-Christian traditions. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, hell is for the non-believers. If you don't believe in God, you'll go to hell. But in the Bhagavad Gita, hell is for the wrongdoers, not for the non-believers. Somebody can maybe a atheist, but if they are living relatively sattvic, that means they don't hurt others, they are conscious of nature, they're kind, they're grateful. Then if they're living sattva guna, urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, they'll get a higher destination. So the idea is that Krishna does not have a personal agenda against anyone. You don't believe me, I'll destroy you. So from the gifts of this world, can one infer the existence of God? Yes, we can. But that has to be an individual choice. It's not an inevitable choice. It's the world's evidence will always be both ways. Now that doesn't mean both sides are equivalent or neutral. We could make a case that the evidence for God's existence is stronger than the evidence for God's non-existence. But it's not a logically cut and dry case. It's not a matter of logical, it's a matter of psychological. Ultimately, each person in their heart has to infer from the evidence that they have observed whether there is some transcendence existing. Yeah. Last question.
In Gita, Krishna explained 7.16 Artho Jigyasur Artha Arthi. And he said, Jnani is best, so is there any hierarchical distinction between first three? Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for portraying love both conditional and unconditional.
Okay. So among the four kinds of people who come to Krishna, Artho, Jigyasur, Artharthi, the Jnani is the best. Tesham Jnani Yukta, Eka Bhakti Rishishate Krishna said, future verses. But among the other three, is there a hierarchy? That Artho is the distressed, Artharthi is the person seeking wealth, and Jigyasu is the person who is inquisitive. So now we could say that, relatively speaking, the Jigyasu is better. That Jigyasu is coming from more of an intellectual curiosity. I want to know more. And the Jnani comes from the idea that I'm convinced that there is a higher reality and I want to connect with that higher reality. So if I don't connect with that higher reality, my life has no meaning. So Jigyasu is coming from more of a curiosity. So the Artho and the Artharthi, they are coming more from personal need. Now, is need a greater Artharthi there? So what is happening is Artho is coming for remove distress, remove pain from my life. And Artharthi is provide pleasure. I want money, I want resources so that I can enjoy, I can have pleasure in my life. So now, is need better than curiosity? Well, it depends. It can be that the sense of need drives a person much more. Somebody might be jigyasu, the curious. Okay, I'm curious about psychology, I'm curious about philosophy, I'm curious about religion. Some people just like to read a lot of things. And when they're curious, they may be very serious about what they're curious of. But after they've studied, they just go away. So similarly, if somebody has need, then at a time of need, they may come and pray very earnestly, oh God, please help me fulfill this desire, please help me remove this problem. And they may do sadhana also, they may do some vrata, some tapa. But once that issue is dealt with, they may again go away. So I would say that in terms of the hierarchy, it's difficult to say. Curiosity is a little bit less self-centered. I want to know. It's not that I need this. So we could say that is better, but then the need may drive a person more strongly. So it's ultimately a matter of not what drives the person at that time that determines the level of the hierarchy. The main factor is what happens after that. If the curiosity is addressed, and as a person continue the curiosity, this is really something profound. I want to explore it more. Once the need is fulfilled, does the person think that I want to have a relationship with Krishna further? So that will determine whether one of them is higher or not. So it's all of them are coming to Krishna, but will they stay with Krishna? That is the key question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. The Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki jai. Gaur Prema.
Thank you.